Alright, Sid Reigns, and Sid Reigns is Lufenia Plus. So, brought Cinque here with Setzer, hoping that, oh wait, let's talk about this for a second. So, for anyone who's not played this, which is probably nobody who's watching this video, the first attack is the recast, only it seems like a more powerful version of it, because Warrior of Light's base call won't protect you from it, but the recast that happens later, it will allow you to survive, so I don't know. Anyways, so we survive it with the Warrior of Light call, and then now we get our debuffs down, because it removes all debuffs from that recast. Since Cinque is 0-3, we drop the stun debuff first before using the LD. That will cause the thing to get knocked back twice instead of just once. And then Reigns using Runagaja Storm. I used it earlier in order to get his buff up, because Reigns is also 0-3, and so does not start with the buff that you get from Reigns' first skill. Reigns' oh, Yuna. So swapping in Yuna here, because I plan on using Setzer for the end. The idea with this is, usually what I do with Setzer is I will use Setzer until Setzer burns out, and then pull in the friend. However, Setzer is going to do much better at the end of this fight than Yuna will, so I'm going to bring Yuna in at the beginning. See how that works? And so Yuna should provide some decent auras for these two, considering she's the only support. However, I did not find this out until the end, but this Yuna, this friend Yuna of mine, has no cursed artifacts at all equipped, despite having a burst and blue armor. So that's why if you're as disappointed as I am in these brave hits that are happening right now, that's why. Part of this could be, though, originally when I was running this, I was kind of wondering if Yuna was getting gimped here because Setzer still has his debuffs on him. I don't think that's the case anymore, but I didn't actually find out until the end of this that Yuna had no cursed artifacts equipped, and so I have since removed this friend. And so Reigns, using his slightly underwhelming EX animation there, with his very powerful EX. I guess we can talk about Cinque here. I think Setzer is very good with both Reigns and Cinque due to the fact that they have so many brave hits in their kits, which you will see throughout this. Reigns and Cinque actually work pretty well together, because Reigns can help counter Cinque's slowness with Reigns' turn manipulation. And so, is that 1 million? Yeah, over 1 million damage. Keep in mind, Reigns and Cinque are both synergy for this run, so that 1 million damage with a 0-3 Reigns and a 0-3 Cinque isn't typical, especially with neither of them being blue. And so Setzer is back. I like how Setzer just... yeah, it was a good thing I had freeze on that guy, or that would have sucked. But I like how Setzer can basically bypass the need for multiple supports. You could argue Setzer's like a support in a way, allowing other people to achieve really high damage. And so, but the only thing is, Setzer without that LD buff is not so wonderful. And so, yeah, I don't think this guy's gonna get a turn. Setzer thought that LD buff is not so wonderful, so if the enemy debuffs you, then Setzer is not debuffs. If the enemy dispels you, then Setzer is going to be highly gimped by that. You're gonna have a much harder time using Setzer. You'll have to time those dispels or use someone else. Or if for whatever reason you can't run too many extra buff slots because fixed dice does take a buff slot. Partially why you don't see me running Setzer, Aphmau, and Reigns right now, but I suppose that can work too. I will say though, with this fight having a relatively lower turn count compared to what I feel like we've had for the last few fights, Setzer does well in those lower turn counts because Setzer is less likely to have all those extra turns at the end where Setzer's already burnt out. So yeah, bring Setzer to the low turn counts. And Cinque kind of burns out here because my Cinque has no ingots and so does not recover uses of Home Run Swing. I'm trying to use since there's only one enemy here, I'm trying to use the Home Run Swings on the plus versions and Earthquakes on the non-plus versions because Home Run Swing gets... does it hit more? I don't remember if it hits more or not off the top of my head, but it does get a Brave battery at the beginning of the move, and so Home Run Swing should hit hard. Home Run Swing Plus should hit one target harder than Earthquake Plus does, and since there's only one enemy, we won't be able to do the little trick where you keep stun level 5 on the other enemy and just keep the plus versions up. But that's okay. Cinque still does her job quite well here. I used Cinque's LD a little bit earlier because I want to make sure I make this tight turn count, and I could have probably waited a few more turns, but that LD hits really hard and I need to make sure I use it all, as opposed to run out of turns, since there's only 65 for this one, and still have uses of the LD. And then as far as calls, I brought Warrior of Light to survive the two forced recasts, one at the beginning, and the second one will happen at 49%. The enemy boss will frame its turn, and then its turns can't be deleted or delayed, and it will take its second turn. So those are the two instances that the Warrior of Light call is going to allow me to survive. I brought Kurasame for the extra HP damage up, even though I don't get it up to level 5. Maybe Gabranth would have been better, I don't know. Kurasame's debuff does also provide... Yeah, see, it framed itself. And now it's going to recast. Anyways, Kurasame's debuff also provides speed down, which helps to prevent that big green tree dragon thing from taking more turns. And here I have to decide what I'm going to do as far as my buffs, because I think a few of them are about to fall off. And if one of Reigns' buffs falls off, that's fine if you add that buff back on by the next turn that Reign gets. So you can't have two buffs fall off. Two of Reigns' own buffs fall off at the same time, just one. I hope that makes sense, what I just said. Reigns applies his buffs before he uses his attack, so yeah. Reigns does not come close to running out of skills in this. Cinque will, because I don't have Cinque recovering her skills. Setzer does, because I often pull Setzer on Reigns' turns. I often pull Setzer up, because Setzer gets more copies of fixed dice when Setzer uses his LD than Setzer's allies do, so I want Setzer to take more turns. And the Ignis call is how I heal myself from those recasts, or more specifically the second recast, and still make the extremely low HP threshold for this. It's only like 7,000, which is rough, but I mean it's only one enemy, so you can't complain too much. So there is the LD use from Sid Reigns again, and we get almost 1 million damage that time, which is fair to not hit 1 million damage on that one, considering we're at 49%. The enemy's below 49% HP, and this is a Lufenia Plus stage. Cinque's very powerful debuff is also putting in work here. Not so much with the extra Brave damage, but that HP damage. And, well, I guess it's not Brave damage, it's 100% defense down, but more so for the extra HP damage that it provides. I'm pretty torn on it. I think it doesn't last long enough, personally. But I think it would have made Cinque very, very well, I don't know about higher tier, but certainly it would have made Cinque a lot better if that Sia debuff lasted 4 turns instead of 3. But what you gonna do? It's not gonna happen. I try to, if I'm doing this correct, which sometimes I do and sometimes I don't, I should be using Cinque and Reigns' LDs right after Setzer has reapplied fixed dice to everybody, so they have the most chance to get rainbows, to trigger the rainbow numbers, due to the fact that there's more brave hits with their LDs than with not their LDs. So that's the way to play that. The enemy tree dragon thing is not going to get a turn. We've been successfully delaying it like crazy between Cinque delaying on her plus skills and her EX, Setzer delaying with red card, and Reigns delaying with, let's see, what does Reigns delay with? I think just his EX, and I guess with the unique HP attack that he gets after using his LD, he'll delay with those 2 things. But he can also grab Cinque and Setzer with his other skills and move them up so that way they can delay. And so yeah, the enemy boss doesn't get a turn, which works out. I originally planned on running this with a green Zidane friend instead of a Yuna. However, none showed up on my friends list for this particular run, so I thought, I'll just try Yuna instead. And then was disappointed by the fact that I managed to pick a Yuna with no cursed artifacts. And, it looks like it's getting its turns a little bit closer. But really what I'm more worried about than the tree dragon getting turns is, yes, you Cinque just delayed him twice. Nice. What I'm more worried about is the 65 turn limit. So I just have to make sure I don't try and stretch out the skill uses for too long. So for example, I want to use Cinque's LD well before her LD buff falls off, as opposed to just trying to maintain it. Stuff like that. Otherwise, yeah, see, if I had more turns, I maybe would consider that, but with only 65 turns, this guy needs to get hit hard and fast. Especially if you only have 3 ingots. And so with Setzer, we used Setzer's EX as opposed to a red card, even though it's getting its turns pretty soon, because I plan on going into the summon. Because we're getting really close to 65 turns. So I don't care if the tree dragon is getting its turn pretty soon. Yeah, I think I realized, oh shoot, I have several of Reigns' LDs left. I should hurry up and use those. Because, not so much there, but oftentimes that LD will hit very, very, very hard. Although I guess considering how much defense and brave reductions the boss has now, 500,000's not bad in one turn. Yeah, we're at 62. And we'll see 65 and go into the summon. I was really hoping that the summon would make the guy launchable here, but it didn't for whatever reason. Or maybe Setzer's EX doesn't launch, or LD doesn't launch, I don't know. Anyways, yeah, for a second I'm like, oh, it didn't launch. Well, I guess I'll use Reigns' other LD now that fixed dice has been refreshed. And so this will do a lot more damage than the previous one for 2 reasons. One, fixed dice has been refreshed, so the rainbows will trigger more. Yeah, almost double damage there, 900,000. And the boss is that dead. But again, synergy. Anyways, Reigns had fixed dice reapplied, and we're in the summon, which ups the maximum amount of damage that's able to be done by a little bit. So that helps, but yeah, we're about to win this. So thoughts on Reigns. I mean, Reigns is OP. Reigns is basically Thunder God Sid from Final Fantasy Tactics, only in DFFOO. This is probably the closest we'll get to Thunder God Sid in Opera Omnia. But he is also named after weather. Rain's thunder god. Just saying. Maybe it's not a coincidence. I have Rains's. I didn't like any of Rains's artwork for his weapons, so I just used one of those generic claws. Because what is it? They're just a bunch of gloves. I guess his LD looks kind of cool, but without his costume, it looks a little out of place. So I just stuck the little claws on him. And that's that. Questions or comments, feel free to comment. There's no ingots on Reigns, 3 on Setzer, and no ingots on Cinque. Thank you very much for watching.